Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, if you're new here, I would really appreciate it if you did subscribe if you enjoyed this video, but we are going to be looking over some free agent forwards that the Toronto Maple Leafs could maybe look to add to their team tomorrow, because tomorrow's free agency. Okay, so in the previous video, we touched on what their plan could be in free agency, and if you haven't watched that one, I will leave it linked above the screen. Basically, they're prioritizing finding a backup goaltender and using the rest of their cap space to fill out the forward core. And then Pierre LeBrun on TSN says, I think somewhere on Carolina's shortlist, Frederik Andersen is on there, and I think somewhere on Toronto's shortlist is Peter Mrazek. And if that's the case, I'd be very happy with that. So if we're looking at a skeleton of what the Leafs could have to look like after finding a goaltender, and $3.5 million is just the placeholder there because Chris Driedger had some of the best numbers among any of the free agent goalies available, and he signed a $3.5 million 3-year deal with the Seattle expansion team. So I don't see anyone getting more than that. And in this scenario, Pierre Engvall would be on waivers to start the season, so the Leafs would be getting a little bit of cap relief from him. Nick Robertson would be on the team. Timothy Liljegren would be playing some games, but of course, on days where he wasn't playing, they can send him down on a paper transaction and save some money against the salary cap. $5.3 million isn't exactly a lot of money to split between two forwards, but if you do your homework and you do your research, you may be able to find two value players that could give you a lot for not very much. Because after all, that's what I believe free agency should be used for. You shouldn't use it to fill major holes in your roster because then you're going to end up overpaying for players. You should be using it to find value deals, players that are undervalued by other teams. So at 5 p.m. yesterday, we got a list of players who were not extended qualifying offers from their teams. So effectively, it made them free agents. So we have a few more names to add to a list of guys who we should take a look at. There are obviously better options than others on this list, but I want to take a look at a couple more popular ones that would probably be a little bit more feasible for the Leafs at this point. And the first one being Puy Sutter from the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, in terms of 2021 numbers, he does rank 5th on this list in terms of expected goals above replacement. But one thing about the Chicago Blackhawks is that they got a player there who tends to make everyone who plays with him a lot better. And there's not a line combination that Puy Sutter was on last year that played over 30 minutes at 5-on-5 that did not feature Patrick Kane. But to Suter's credit, if you're looking at the with or without numbers, he wasn't actually as dependent on Patrick Kane as you may initially believe. It's actually really interesting when you look at the data of Suter away from Kane here, actually has a higher share of the scoring chances and a higher share of the expected goals, but as you would expect, just the raw numbers there and the actual goals with Patrick Kane, he's got a higher share of those. He's a smaller player at 5'11" and 176 pounds, but at the same time, it's interesting. He's 25 years old and he turned 25 in May. Which means that if the Maple Leafs signed him to a contract, just a 1-year deal, even though he's an unrestricted free agent this summer, he would actually be a restricted free agent the summer after. He wouldn't be scheduled to hit the open market again until 2023. Players who were not extended qualifying offers last offseason that signed really cheap deals include guys like Anthony Duclair, Carter Verhaeghe, Andreas Athanasiou. There was a couple of guys last year that were available for real bargain basement prices that provided their teams with a lot of value. Suter can be another one of them. Now the Leafs need two forwards, right? And another guy that was not extended a qualifying offer is Nick Ritchie from the Boston Bruins. Ritchie, in terms of the expected goals above replacement, at even strength produced well offensively, and he also produced quite well on the power play for the Bruins this past season. Now, he is listed at 6'2" and 234 pounds, and he is a winger. There's a lot to like about this player. He is just 25 years old, turning 26, but when we're looking at the numbers here, he also did score 15 goals, but if we're looking at the zone splits with this player at even strength, he was heavily sheltered. And even though he was sheltered and playing a lot of offensive zone starts, the shot attempt share relative to the rest of his teammates wasn't necessarily the best. But Kyle Dubas, in that eye-rolling press conference that he gave on Saturday on day 2 of the entry draft, said that they wanted to acquire some different elements to their forward core, and Nick Ritchie would definitely be different than what the Maple Leafs already have. And it's the same sort of situation with a guy like Nick Ritchie, with him being 25, turning 26. If the Leafs signed him to a contract, they would have his rights for next season and the season after. Now, the last player that I wanted to highlight here in this video is a guy named Michael Bunting. Bunting's definitely not big, but I wouldn't call him small either at 5'11" and 197 pounds. Played on Team Canada's World Championship team, and although he didn't have any points in that tournament, he didn't look necessarily out of place. A guy that really lit up the American Hockey League the last couple of seasons, and he didn't just be called up to the Arizona Coyotes and just play in a depth role for them. No, not at all. He played with guys like Connor Garland, Nick Schmaltz, and Clayton Keller. Yeah, it's in a small sample of just 21 games, but in those 21 games, he wasn't out of place on either of the lines that he played on with the Arizona Coyotes. Like we said at the beginning of the video, $5.3 million isn't necessarily a lot of money, but you could do a lot with very little in a market if you look to take advantage of value players. And if you can sign two more guys that push Mikheyev and Robertson down, and maybe allow Robertson, like I said in the previous video, to start on the fourth line there in a sheltered position and let him earn more ice as the season goes along, give him some opportunities on the power play and make him earn it, maybe by January or February, he really impresses. And if he doesn't, you can still look to add at the trade deadline. And don't roll your eyes at that. Like we've shown in the past, you can do a lot at the trade deadline with very little. Especially when you're getting 50% salary retained or even double salary retention, you can acquire a lot when you're considering that contracts are prorated. So the Maple Leafs may not be able to do a whole lot in free agency, but they may be able to get some good value players to tide them over to the trade deadline, where they may look to be big spenders and big adders to really bolster this team. And don't roll your eyes at that either, because the Tampa Bay Lightning, before they won back-to-back Stanley Cups, spent 2 first-round picks, another prospect that was drafted in the first round, and really bolstered their team with some missing elements in guys like Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow. And maybe the Leafs might want to take a page out of the Lightning's book and get players with more than 1 year left on their deal, so that the assets that they're giving up aren't necessarily towards just a rental player that they're going to end up losing in free agency anyway. Players that are maybe on better contracts that can give you value next offseason as well and into the next year. But I do want to say a couple of things before I end off this video, because I think a lot of people watch these and they mistake what these are for what I would do or what I want to happen. No, these videos are from the perspective of, okay, this is the situation that they're in. This is what they said that they wanted to do. This is what they said that they are going to do. How can we make the most of it? So if it sounds like I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, or I'm being optimistic, or I like what's going on here, no, that's not the case at all. That's just who I am, right? I'm trying to make the most of it. I don't think fans or people are stupid. They understand that, you may be in a situation right now by some of your own creation, but not necessarily entirely of your own fault. But I think people just want you to be proactive. Have some foresight at the very least. And I said in my previous video that everyone was begging the Leafs to live and die with their star players after the 2019 loss to the Boston Bruins. And they've done that the last 2 years, and it hasn't worked. But the thing is that people aren't stupid. When Dubas says, these players are young, they're 23, 24 years old when it comes to Matthews and Marner, they're just entering the prime of their careers, they can get better. People would accept that. But the thing is that in the meantime, they are making so much money that it is impossible to surround them with any sort of help, to lessen the burden on them for now. So then what becomes the solution? Are we just preaching patience? Because you should never pin failures of past regimes on the current one. But in this case right now, Kyle, you're preaching patience to people who have been waiting for over 50 years. And again, people aren't stupid, right? If there was any sort of progression from maybe that first loss to Boston in 2018, to the second one, to the Columbus loss, to this blown series here, I don't think people are as mad, right? But the same thing, the last 4 seasons, I don't think people are being unreasonable. And you can look at the team right now and say that, yeah, that the way that the roster was constructed is flawed, but after these contracts were signed, it was still conceivable that the salary cap was going to go up to $84 million. And then right now, it was conceivable that it could have been $88 million. Nobody asked for what happened over the last 2 years in the world to happen. You know, if they had $6.5 million more to spend and the cap was 88 million, if they had almost $12 million in cap space, are people as skeptical as to see, you know, yeah, okay, even if those guys do falter a little bit, you got some more depth behind them to kind of support them a little bit. And if they take steps forward, oh boy, this could be something special. You know, and I think that people understand that. Again, I don't think that people are stupid. The cap was supposed to go up. Now it's staying flat. Maybe you should come up with a new plan now that the cap is staying flat. So keeping all of that in mind, and free agency being tomorrow, whatever happens next season, the end result will be deserved, whether it is good or it is bad. I said here on the channel that I would do one trade Mitch Marner video, and I only did one trade Mitch Marner video from the time that the playoffs have ended until now. I'm going to do one video where I talk about everything that went wrong. I'm going to do one video like that. And then I would like to move on afterwards and just see what happens with the season. You know, being a journalism student and having this channel, whether they win or they lose, obviously I would rather they win. People are going to watch anyway, right? So I just wanted to end on that little bit of a note there because the previous clip was quite serious. But if you guys did like the video, make sure to leave me a like on it and subscribe for more because more is always on the way. And hopefully Wednesday goes well.